Hi, I'm Mary, a librarian and book reviewer with a focus on stories written for kids, tweens, and teens. Today, I am joined by Donna Galanti, who wanted to be a writer ever since she attended an English school housed in a magical castle, where her wild imagination was held back only by her itchy uniform, bowler hat and tie included. She is the author of several middle grade and adult novels, and when Donna's not wandering the woods seeking magic and wonder, you can usually find her biking or kayaking. Welcome, Donna. It's so great to have you.
Oh, it's wonderful to be here, Mary. Thank you so much for having me.
Tell us a little bit about Loon Cove Summer.
Absolutely. Well, it's a book that's been in the works since 2013. It's my first contemporary. All my other books were fantasy up till now. And it's very personal to me because the setting is actually a campground in New England, which my parents owned and operated when I was a little girl. So I used this setting that I lived in for this story, and it has bird conservation in it, loons, the Appalachian Trail, quirky characters in the campground. And in the story, we have Sarah, who's 13, the main character, and she's determined to get unstuck this summer. And she wants to brave the lake again, save the loons, and stop missing her mom, who recently passed away. But her one bright spot is volunteering at the Wild Bird Rehab Center, which I also volunteer at one myself. And things kind of go awry. There's lots of mishaps, and she fears losing her dad, her home, the loons. And so she decides to go on this bold solo wild adventure to make a big statement, but she soon realizes maybe she made a choice that might claim her life in her recklessness. So there's a big adventurous moment near the end of the book related to the Appalachian Trail.
So, did you do any sort of research for this? So you're drawing from some personal experience. Did you end up
Right.
traveling on the Appalachian Trail, any of that to write this book?
I Yes, I did so much research the last 13 years, right, until this book just came out this May. I have hiked the Appalachian Trail. Also, my great uncle Elmer hiked it all the way through 2,200 miles when he was in his 60s by himself. And so I have his journals, and that was a huge inspiration for that. I wish I could be as courageous as him and do that all by myself, but I'm not. And also researching loons, which I love. And I actually volunteer for the National Audubon Society. So I help do education programs with students, and we use bird ambassadors like hawks and owls and that. So that's super exciting. And yeah, so much. And I actually went back and did a book research trip to the campground my parents owned, which was like a total blast from the past. It was also sad because my mom had since passed away when I went back, but it was just all these memories flooded back that were so special to me. And it was a time in my life when I had so many firsts, like young kids do. I caught my first fish, I had my first dog, I went snowmobiling for the first time, so many things. So it's really a special memory for me.
Do any of the characters draw from personal people that you're connected to, or are they kind of a blend of characters that you've encountered in your life?
They are from real people. So it's such a personal story because the relationship between Sarah and her dad is what my dad went through. We had shared grief when my mom passed away, and we didn't often communicate very well. So we had to redefine our relationship. So that's very personal to me in the story and the character as my dad. And also I am Sarah to a T. So all the good, the bad, the making the bad decisions, right? All of those things, speaking before thinking. So I'm definitely Sarah in many ways and a nature lover too.
Where did your passion for birds come from?
That's a really good question. I think it started with the loons. I'm lucky to go to my friend's lake house in northern New York every year, and I get to commune with the loons. And I love raptors, owls, and hawks and bald eagles. I just think they're so majestic and magical. And so that's why I've been in love with them for a long time.
So cool. So why did you become a writer? You said that you've been working on this book for the last 13 years or so. Have you been, well, you said also in your in your bio that you've always liked to write from school and things like that, but what kind of got the itch going?
It's such a vivid memory in my mind. I was 7 years old. I started reading The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis. And I went through the whole series, and I knew right then and there, I'm writing fantasy. And I still have my first story I handwrote in pencil. My mom saved everything. And it was about a dodo bird, a wizard, and a flying ship. So that got me on the journey of writing fantasy, which I love. Yeah, so that's a fun memory that I have.
That's cool. Do you find that there are moments where you prefer writing for middle grade versus adults, or what is it that draws you to those two ends of the spectrum?
Well, that's a great question because I actually started writing books for adults. I have paranormal thrillers for adults, but my editor said I had a really young voice in it too with one character. She said, "Oh, you have a really unique young voice. You should explore that." So I did, and I took classes and workshops, and I just fell in love with the middle grade audience for many reasons because at that age, that 8 to 12, they have one foot set in magical childhood, one foot set heading towards young adult. Things are still magical. They're experiencing all those firsts, and they're so complex because they want to have their own identity, but they want to fit in. They want to be loyal to their family, but they want to do things on their own. And so it's a mix, and it's a really interesting place to write from.
Absolutely. And I feel like even just in the last couple decades, the middle grade space has really exploded in that way. There's been so many voices coming out to explore all of those rich firsts that you were just referring to. So it's fun to be able to have another book to add to the space. Your title, uh, it explores a lot of those heavier concepts. And I feel like that is really important for this age group to, because it's not always sunshine and rainbows.
Right.
What was your rationale or your desire to kind of explore those darker sides of life?
I think it was a healing journey for me, honestly, because it was so personal, having dealt with grief over losing my mom to cancer, and she was really my champion. So I didn't know who I was in this world without my mom. So I think this story for me was a personal journey to heal from that, and to also find a way to communicate with my dad along the way. Since I started this book so long ago, he has since passed away too, but it was a healing journey for me to get to know him better. And so focusing on the grief, but then also I wanted to include some lightness and have some quirky characters in it. Some of the permanent residents that live at the campground. Sarah's uncle is a converted Buddhist, so he's always spouting off words of wisdom. Like I wish I had my own wise guide, and yeah, so I wanted to add that little bit of lightness and a community feel and a feeling of family and friendship too. So
I think you've done a really good job of that. And also, just as Sarah is going through these really complicated feelings and her outbursts that happen as a result, and then having to step back and apologize and things like that, she really goes through a really beautiful arc of self-discovery through the book, which comes across as cathartic for readers too. So I
oh, thank
appreciate
you.
that part of the book as well. Do you have a favorite character or a favorite moment within the book?
Well, definitely my favorite moment is kind of a climactic moment when she's on the Appalachian Trail and she bonds with her dad again. Um, that's one of my favorite moments. And it's so hard with the characters because they're all so different and were fun to write. I love her Uncle Juju, who's the converted Buddhist. But I also love her friend Theo. I think he loves the banjo. He loves loons like her. He's a photographer and photographs things that are disappearing, which is hard to do. Um, and I think he's a really good friend that she needs at this time. So I love him.
Yeah. Oh, there's so many moments that I'm excited for readers to get to. I don't want to do any spoilers. But yes, they're all really lovely characters, and how they come together for this shared purpose is really beautiful too.
Thank you.
What advice would you give to authors or readers as they're going through their own personal journeys, whether writing becomes their focus or something different?
Well, I guess to start with authors, it's a roller coaster journey. So that's been my experience. Lots of acceptances, lots of rejections, having worked with multiple agents, publishers, editors. I would say elevate yourself with people around you who can elevate you. Those writers, those authors, editors, publishers, go to writing conferences, learn your craft, join writing organizations, and volunteer with them. That was really key for me to get to build a network and have doors open with opportunities, the volunteering part with writing organizations. So that's changed my path. And for readers, one thing I've learned in the last couple of years is to read outside your comfort zone, right? And I think that can really help with your personal journey. It can open you up to new perspectives. It can help you find your own answers to personal issues. It can provide comfort. I'm doing that with a book club now. I'm reading totally outside my comfort zone, and I love it. And some books I really love, and some I don't. And we're actually talking about it from a writer's perspective, so the craft of the book. But it's just it really opens up my world to new points of view and just life in general. So I think reading outside your comfort zone is key.
What is a title that you've read recently outside of your comfort zone that you're happy you picked up?
A couple stand out. One was Lessons in Chemistry, which I would never have read on my own, and I just loved it. It's one of the few books that I cried at the end. I can't remember the last time I actually cried in a book reading it. And then we recently read The Snow Child, which is this beautiful, magical, atmospheric story with magical realism in it. So the setting and the nature, I was really drawn to with that.
Do you have ideas that come to you after reading these books that you jotted down and that you're excited to pursue in different formats?
That's a really interesting question I've never gotten before, but no, actually, I usually go out to the woods and walk and come up with my own ideas. But other books haven't really helped me generate ideas. So that's interesting. And maybe
Oh,
because I don't want to mimic or launch anything from their story, I want to separate myself from that. So
that makes sense. And being out in nature generally is a good way to kind of wash your ideas clean and come up
yeah.
with new, fresh ways of looking at things too. What do you hope that readers come away with after reading Loon Cove Summer?
Oh my gosh. Well, I hope it appeals to nature lovers and adventure seekers and fans of environmental causes, all of that. But I also want to empower kids to be their own hero. That yes, they can have a guide and get advice, but ultimately they have to decide on making their own choices and choosing different paths. And I also want I want the book to inspire them to build strong connections with the natural world because I think that's so important to get out in nature, even if it's a city park or an urban landscape, to find some kind of nature, to look up in the sky and see the birds and understand about them and learn about them and the trees. I also volunteer with the Old Growth Forest Network. So I love trees, and that's really important to me as well to conserve them. So learning about nature and getting out in nature is what I'm hoping kids will take away from this.
I think it definitely invites that from the perspective of both Sarah, who kind of lives on this campground, and then also Theo, who is visiting for the first time. So you have both of those perspectives kind of woven into the story, which is really nice. So what other projects do you have coming up that you'd like to talk about?
Oh, yes. I mean, I have so many books in the works, as so many authors tend to do. And so it's like, what do I work on next? But I do have another contemporary middle grade coming out March 2026 called The Secret Winners Club. And it's another book very personal to me. This one actually has three points of view in it, three 13-year-olds in middle school, and they all have visible autoimmune conditions. And I have five autoimmune conditions, and several of them are visible. And that this is what really inspired me to write this book. They all want to be known for something else besides their conditions. So they're all in different clubs. They're in swim club, theater, and junk bot club. And they decide to create this secret club so they can all help each other become winners and beat out their competition in their clubs and be number one. So they do this. However, along the way, they discover that they're doing it by crossing the line, by hurting other people. And in doing this, it can make them more visible and more of an outsider. So there's some lessons to be learned and relationships created and kind of torn apart. But it all comes back around to a new way that they can move on with their club.
Well, that sounds really interesting, not only from the autoimmune perspective, but also that they sound like perhaps unintentional villains a little bit too. So you see a different side of the storytelling. How fun. We'll have to
Yeah.
watch for that.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. Where can listeners go to find out more about you and your books?
Absolutely. They can go to my website, which is just my name, Donna Galanti. that ends with an I, not an E, donnagalanti.com. I'm really active on Instagram, Facebook, and I also have a YouTube channel where I put up a lot of nature videos because I love doing that. So yeah, just look up my name and you'll be able to find all these places where my books are.
Awesome. Well, what question did I not ask you that you wish that I had?
That's a really tough question. Again, another one I haven't gotten before. Probably, and I was thinking about this. Um, a lot of my books have some kind of nature elements in them. So maybe why do I infuse my books with nature? And I've had to think about this too. And I think it's because I grew up in the mountains of upstate New York by myself as an only child. So my playground was the forest. And I would just roam the forest during the day with my dogs, and I would climb the trees and sing to the trees, usually John Denver songs because I was in love with John Denver at the time. I wanted to marry him. And write my stories in the nooks of trees. And so I think that's where my nature love came in. And I always infuse my books with that.
I think that's beautiful. And it comes through in your storytelling. It blends the nature with the human nature, I think, in a
Mm,
really lovely way.
thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Donna, for joining us today. We really appreciate your time. And listeners, if Loon Cove Summer sounds like a great fit for you, I hope you look for it wherever you get your books. Thanks again, Donna. It was nice to talk to you today.
You too. Thanks, Mary.